The vault sat 2 floors underground in the Antwerp World Diamond Center, the heart of a district that handles over 80% of the world's rough diamonds. It was protected by 10 layers of security, a lock with 100 million possible combinations, infrared heat detectors, a seismic sensor that could detect vibration from a drill or a saw, Doppler radar, a magnetic field between 2 metal plates on the vault door that triggered an alarm if the field broke. Closed-circuit cameras covering every hallway, elevator, and entrance, a private security force on the ground floor, a gated inner door that could only be opened by a buzzer from the control booth. The building itself occupied one of the most surveilled and guarded blocks of real estate on Earth. Insurance investigators referred to the area as the Secure Antwerp Diamond Area. Breaking into that vault was considered impossible. A 5-man crew from Turin, Italy did it with hairspray, a can of tape, a polystyrene sheet, and a homemade aluminum plate. Leonardo Notarbartolo was a professional thief, and he treated theft as a discipline. For him, cracking a vault was not a job. It was a problem to be solved, a system to be studied and taken apart. Around 2000, he found a new problem: the Antwerp Diamond Center vault. He rented an office in the building at 9/11 Schoepstraat under a false identity, posing as an Italian diamond importer. He paid his rent on time. He scheduled meetings with established dealers. He dressed well, spoke multiple languages, and behaved exactly like the hundreds of other merchants who occupied the building. Renting an office also granted him access to a safe deposit box in the vault. He visited it regularly, which gave him a reason to descend to the basement and observe the security systems up close. He spent 18 months studying. He noted camera positions and blind spots. The crew Notarbartolo assembled came from what Italian law enforcement called the School of Turin, a loose network of professional thieves based in the northern Italian city who specialized in high-value vault jobs. They were not violent men. They did not carry weapons, they did not confront guards or threaten employees. Their entire philosophy centered on stealth. Get in when nobody is there, take what you want, get out before anyone knows. They had been pulling jobs across Europe for years, targeting banks, jewelry stores, and private vaults, building a collective expertise in alarm systems, lock mechanics, and entry methods that made them among the most skilled, non-violent criminals on the continent. Notarbartolo was their planner, the man who identified targets and figured out how to defeat their defenses. The Antwerp job was the most ambitious target he had ever selected. He timed the security patrols. He identified which sensors were active during business hours and which activated only after the building closed for the night. He installed a small hidden camera above the vault door to record who came and went, at what times, and the combination entered on the keypad. Over months, he captured the vault code on video. He visited the corridor outside the vault in disguise and used a small can of hairspray to coat the thermal motion sensor with a fine film that temporarily blocked its ability to detect body heat. He tested it. The film held. The sensor stayed blind. While Notarbartolo handled reconnaissance, he assembled a crew. Each man brought a specific skill. Pietro Tavano, called Speedy, was an anxious, paranoid man who served as a lookout and driver. Fernando Finotto, called the Monster, was tall, muscular, and skilled as a lockpicker, electrician, and mechanic. Elio Denorio, called the Genius, was a specialist in alarm systems. And there was a 5th man, known only as the King of Keys, a key forger whose real name was never made public. He was reportedly one of the best in Europe, capable of creating 3-dimensional replicas of complex keys from molds, photographs, or memory. The crew practiced the entry sequence over and over for months. The vault was sealed in total darkness when closed, and they needed to work without turning on lights until they were sure the cameras and sensors had been defeated. They rehearsed moving through the space blind, counting steps, memorizing the positions of obstacles, developing muscle memory for each task they would need to perform in the dark. Their entry route avoided the building's main doors. Next to the Diamond Center was an abandoned building that shared a private garden. The crew could access the garden, climb up through a balcony, and enter through a window. An infrared camera watched the balcony. The Genius built a shield out of polystyrene, a white foam material that blocks thermal radiation, large enough to cover a crouching human body. If held between the person and the camera, it rendered the infrared sensor useless. He also fabricated a custom aluminum plate designed to bypass the magnetic sensor on the vault door. The vault's magnetic alarm worked by maintaining a field between two metal plates. If the door opened and the plates separated, the field broke and the alarm triggered. Days before the heist, during normal business hours when the alarm was deactivated, Notarbartolo partially unscrewed the bolts holding the plates in place and used double-sided tape to keep the plates aligned. During the actual break-in, the crew slid the aluminum plate between the plates and the door frame, maintaining the magnetic field even as they swung the door open. On the evening of Friday, February 14, 2003, Valentine's Day, Notarbartolo made one last trip to a safe deposit box. While inside the vault, he pulled out his hairspray and gave the thermal motion sensor another coat. He left the building without attracting attention. That night, after the building closed and the security shutters rolled down, the crew moved in through the abandoned building next door. They crossed the garden, held the polystyrene shield in front of the balcony camera, entered through the window, and made their way to the basement. They carried tools in bags, crowbars, the aluminum plate, a hand-crank device custom-built for opening safe deposit boxes, and equipment for disabling or blinding the remaining sensors. They taped over the ceiling light sensor so they could eventually turn on the lights without triggering an alert. They opened the vault door using the three-dimensional key forged by the King of Keys and the combination captured on Notarbartolo's hidden camera. They used the aluminum plate to bypass the magnetic alarm. They cracked the day gate with a crowbar. Inside the vault, they turned on the lights and went to work. Using the hand-crank device, they opened 109 of the 189 safe deposit boxes, each equipped with both a unique key lock and a three-letter combination lock. The cranking tool applied enough torque to shear the locks without making the kind of noise that would trigger the seismic sensor. Diamonds spilled out of cases, loose stones, polished and unpolished, gold bars, silver, rings, necklaces, bracelets, stacks of cash in multiple currencies, bond notes, a Rolex, a brick of solid gold. Velvet-lined boxes emptied and tossed onto the floor. The vault floor became a carpet of scattered gems, empty containers, and discarded cardboard boxes. The crew scooped everything of value into bags and left the rest where it fell. They worked for hours, methodical and focused. The vault was cold and quiet, the only sounds the clicking of locks being forced and the soft clatter of stones falling out of cases. Notarbartolo moved between the rows directing traffic, pointing to boxes that had not been opened, checking the time, keeping the pace steady. They filled bag after bag. The estimated value of what they took grew with every box they cracked. Some held collections assembled over generations, family diamonds passed from grandmother to mother to daughter, now scooped into a canvas sack by a man in gloves. Others held the working stock of diamond dealers who stored their inventory in the vault rather than in their offices. The losses would later be claimed at over $100 million, though the true figure was disputed by everyone involved. By Sunday morning, they had finished. They cleaned up what they could, collected their tools, and exited the way they came in. The building would not reopen until Monday. They had 24 hours before anyone would know what happened. On Monday morning, February 17th, a Diamond Center employee descended to the vault and found the aftermath. The bomb-proof door stood open, undamaged. The gated inner door was open. The floor was covered in debris. Detectives from Antwerp's specialized diamond crime unit arrived and needed time to process what they were seeing. Empty velvet cases, cardboard cigar boxes, tin-clasped metal containers, loose gemstones rolling across the floor. Detective Patrick Pays later said that if he could have scooped it all up, the leftovers alone would have been enough to finance a luxurious retirement for his entire unit. The heist should have been clean. The crew had bypassed every sensor, avoided every camera, left no prints inside the vault, and exited without triggering a single alarm. They had committed what experts later called the most technically sophisticated vault breach in modern history. Then they blew it. After the robbery, Notarbartolo and Speedy returned to Notarbartolo's apartment in Antwerp. They had bags of evidence to dispose of, tools, clothing, tape, and miscellaneous debris from the job. They drove to a wooded area near the E19 motorway between Antwerp and Brussels and dumped everything by the roadside. The particular patch of ground they chose belonged to a man named August van Camp, a local landowner who happened to be diligent about keeping his property clean. Van Camp found the trash the next morning and called the police. Among the debris, investigators found an envelope with Nota Bartolo's name on it. They found a receipt linked to his rental. They found a half-eaten salami sandwich with his DNA on it. The meticulous planning, the 18 months of reconnaissance, the hand-built bypass tools, the key forgery, the polystyrene shields, the rehearsals in the dark. All of it undone by a sandwich tossed out a car window onto the wrong piece of land. Nota Bartolo was arrested within days. Tavano, Denorio, and Finotto were picked up shortly after. The King of Keys was never identified or caught. Nota Bartolo was convicted and sentenced to 10 years. The other three received 5 years each. Nota Bartolo was released on parole in 2009, but was rearrested in 2013 at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris for violating his parole conditions, which included compensating the victims of the heist. He never paid. He served the remainder of his sentence until 2017. In prison, Nota Bartolo gave a series of interviews to Wired magazine, in which he offered a different version of events. He claimed the heist was not his idea. He said a prominent Antwerp diamond merchant had hired the crew to rob the vault as part of an insurance fraud scheme. According to Nota Bartolo, they stole only about $20 million worth of goods. The merchant had already removed his own valuables before the heist and then filed inflated insurance claims, effectively doubling his money. The $100 million figure reported in the press, Nota Bartolo said, was the merchant's fabrication. Investigators noted that the vault itself had been denied an insurance policy due to security flaws, which made Nota Bartolo's insurance fraud theory impractical. Most experts did not consider his account credible. The diamonds were never recovered. Wherever they went after leaving the vault, they passed through enough hands and crossed enough borders to vanish from any traceable chain. Antwerp handles 84% of the world's rough diamond trade. Billions of dollars in stones move through the district every week. Uncut diamonds have no serial numbers, no registration, and minimal documentation until they are certified by a grading laboratory. A stolen loose diamond can be recut and recertified within days, emerging with new proportions, a new grade, and a new identity. In a market where handshake deals and unrecorded transactions are still common, tracing a stolen stone is functionally impossible unless someone confesses to handling it. The vault breach itself became a case study in security circles. 10 layers of protection, each designed to detect and stop a different type of intrusion, and every single one was defeated by a team of 5 men using consumer-grade materials and tools that could be purchased at a hardware store and a beauty supply shop. Hairspray for the thermal sensor, tape for the magnetic plates, foam for the infrared camera, a hand crank for the box locks. The lesson was not that the vault was poorly designed. The lesson was that any system can be learned, and anything that can be learned can be beaten, given enough time and enough patience, and a man willing to spend 18 months pretending to be a diamond merchant while secretly filming the vault combination and spraying hairspray on security sensors during his lunch break. Nota Bartolo has served his time. The King of Keys remains unknown. The diamonds remain missing. In August 2025, Netflix released a documentary called Stolen: Heist of the Century, in which Nota Bartolo appeared on camera for the first time, alongside the Belgian detectives who caught him, each side telling their version of what happened over that Valentine's Day weekend in 2003. The documentary was produced by the same team behind The Tinder Swindler, another story about a convincing liar who built an elaborate identity to take money from people who trusted him. The comparison was not subtle, and the vault, stripped of its contents and its reputation, sits beneath the Antwerp Diamond Center, 2 floors underground, still protected by infrared sensors and magnetic plates, and a lock with 100 million combinations, still considered one of the most secure facilities in the world, and still carrying the memory of the night 5 men from Turin proved that it was not.